Welcome back, everyone, to the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. I'm joined once again by our NFL handicapper, Dan Erta. Dan, the reverse jinx attempt did not work.
It's funny. A lot of the people who read my column and Twitter followers called me out on trying to reverse jinx myself.
Oh, actually, it did work.
I mean, it worked.
You went 2-1.
Which lowered my percentage for the year.
That's true.
But I really wasn't trying to do that. I'm just trying to explain to some of the people who haven't been doing this very long that long-term sustainability, 71%, is not rare. It's flat out impossible. That's all I was trying to make the point of.
I thought you were a big proponent of the secret, though. You know, put the positive vibes out there and good things will follow. Isn't that your philosophy?
I am a big fan of the secret, but I mean, for me, thinking positive is hitting 60% for a season, not 71%.
Yeah, well, and you're doing very positively in that regard. So you did go 2-1 last week, another winning week for you, bringing your total. What are you up now? 27,
11, and 2.
11 and 2 on the year. So just below 70%, I believe. Doing phenomenal work with the NFL this season. So taking a look back at those 3 games from last week, first one you had was Cleveland +3 at home against the Ravens, and hey, they went out and they played really well. Jason Campbell looked good again, and they won that game outright, 24-18.
You know, if Cincinnati's defensive injuries continue to take a toll on them, Cleveland could win that division.
Only 2 back now, and you said it last week, anytime they've had a non-Brandon Weeden behind center, they've looked really good.
And not even great quarterbacks. Hoyer and Campbell, I wouldn't say they're great, but they can put the ball where their playmakers can go get it.
Yeah, Campbell, he's not a top-tier quarterback, obviously, but he made some plays last week. He looked really mobile in the pocket for another second consecutive week. He had that big 4th down scramble to kind of ice the game down the stretch there.
You know how sometimes they say a team's going to be good because they're rested off a bye? He's been rested off of a 3-year bye, pretty much.
Definitely fresher legs than most veteran quarterbacks out there. But
I also think it's fair to say that anytime a player goes to Oakland, he gets a pass for that time completely.
Yeah, it was the Randy Moss situation.
Moss thing, yeah.
He had that lost year in Oakland, and then suddenly it looked like a Hall of Famer again when he goes back to New England. So
Jason Campbell, like the first couple of years in Washington, he was like the stat geek's favorite who kept on saying like, "Oh, I know Washington's not winning, but if you really look at this and this guy could be a real good quarterback." And they went to Oakland, who believed that, and I blame Oakland more than I blame him. He looks good.
Yeah, they call Oakland the black hole. It's the black hole of talent. It sucks people's talent into the abyss there. But Terrell Pryor trying to buck that trend for them. But Cleveland won the game outright, so that was a win for you last week. Moving on to your one loss of the week last week in Week 9, you had the Saints -4.5, and they lost 26-20 at the New York Jets, who continued their trend of looking good every other week somehow. And I will point out the Jets have the worst point differential of any 5-4 team in NFL history.
Oh, man.
So if you're a believer in the point differential being a better indicator of true team talent and prowess than the overall record, then there's a pretty damning statistic against the New York Jets.
Hey, but those are the same people that told you to bet your life on the under for the Colts wins this year.
Yeah, exactly. The regression Colts have not looked like people predicted prior to the season, and that's been because of the huge jump by Andrew Luck, obviously. Not only looking like he's made a step in his second year in the league, but looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, period.
And getting games handed to them like they did on Sunday is not hurting their cause, but
yeah, you got to be lucky sometimes.
I was so close to taking Houston, and I didn't, and I'm very happy.
Yeah, it came down to the 2-point conversion at the end of the game as to whether that 1.5-point line would cover or not. But getting back to that Saints game, the Geno Smith only completed 3 passes that traveled beyond the line of scrimmage the entire game.
Must be quarterbacks with the last name Smith can't throw passes more than.
It's a generic name, and they have a generic style of playing football. They don't step outside the box, and it's not a run and gun system. But Chris Ivory in his revenge game against the Saints, he looked really good, chalking up a lot of yardage, and just they did the ground and pound thing that the Jets become known for, and that Jets defense stepped up once again and picked off Drew Brees a couple times and held them in check for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say in my defense is I took the Saints -4.5, and it closed at 6.5, so if you're to like one 3-word motto for how to win at sports betting is beat the close. But other than that, I can't really make any excuses. It was a bad pick, and yeah, I mean, the Saints outside of their dome are not as dominant. I thought the Jets were going to be bad enough that they would have enough weapons to win this one big still. I was wrong.
You were, but you weren't alone. That upset was the biggest win of the week for many sports books out there, as 72% of the point spread bets were on the Saints in that game, and they were on a lot of parlays out there. For
a lot of teasers, a lot of money line parlays. Yeah, that one definitely did big as well.
So the books were happy about that outcome. But was a good week for you, and we'll move on to your third play, which was also a winner. You had a 2-team teaser between Carolina down to -1.5 and New England -1. Now Carolina won their game at home against the Falcons 34-10, and New England in their best by far offensive performance of the season. And you kind of called this one ahead of time. It was New England 55, Steelers 31. Dan, anything you wanted to take away from those games, or was that just basically what you expected going in?
That's what I expected. I should have done a reverse 6-point teaser where I add 6 points to each spread and get like plus 500 odds or something.
And you still would have won pretty handily.
No, I mean these games went the way I saw them. The Falcons are done. It's not their fault. They're not a terrible team, but when you get decimated by injuries the way they have, you really can't succeed. And the Panthers are really hot. They got all the confidence in the world. You got Riverboat Ron seeming to make all the right calls lately. And yeah, and then in the Steelers game, by all means, just continue to bet against the Steelers. I'm not betting on Buffalo this week because I want to see E.J. Manuel show that he's fully healthy first. But in fact, the best thing that could possibly happen would be for the Bills to struggle and Pittsburgh to look decent, because then I'm going to bet the house next week.
Then zag again.
Yeah.
But you
that team's awful.
Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, he was interviewed this past week, and they said, "What do you think is the biggest thing you've improved upon as a coach?" Well, I never punt on fourth down anymore. Or I never kick on fourth down anymore, he said.
And he's embracing it. Yeah. You got to love it.
He said it with a smile, so he definitely knows that everybody out there he's got the Riverboat Ron moniker, and he's living it up, and it's working for him. So good work by him to adjust his coaching strategy on the fly like that.
Good work by him, good work by the Panthers, but just as a little foreshadow, I think that the good days might be coming to an end.
Yeah, you do. You're involved in Carolina in your Week 10 play, which we'll get to. Even though the Carolina is on a 4-game winning streak where they won all 4 games by at least 14 points, but we'll talk about this later. Those 4 teams have a combined 6-27 record. So.
Yeah, they're not just bad teams; they're the teams with the terrible defense kind of bad teams.
Exactly. So New England, they scored the most points and gained the most yards against the Steelers in the Pittsburgh's franchise history. They seem to have their offense coming together now. Amendola is healthy at the moment. Gronkowski looks like he's at full strength. And Aaron Dobson is looking like he's got a better hang of the offense, and he's been tying together a couple of good performances. So.
And this is the week that a lot of people decided to finally bench Tom Brady after weeks and weeks and weeks of frustration.
Yeah, I know in our league that we're in together, a guy benched Brady. But he put in Nick Foles instead, so he was fine.
I know multiple people who benched him for Terrell Pryor, who, just the way Terrell Pryor plays the game, even though he threw 2 interceptions and did not throw a touchdown, he still put up 16 points, which wasn't terrible.
Yeah, he always has a very high floor because of those rushing totals in fantasy. But so that was a 2-1 week for you in Week 9, and we're going to go ahead to Week 10 now, and hopefully we'll keep those winning ways going. No reverse jinx this week, or no?
No reverse jinx this week.
All right, so we're just shooting for wins.
Shooting for 2-1.
Yeah. All right, so only 2 plays this week, but interestingly enough, one of them is your first 2-unit play of the week. And how are we going to classify that? Are we just going to consider that two games either way? So if it wins, that's
that's what I'm going to do. 2-0 if I win, and 0-2 if I lose.
All right, fair enough. So that 2-unit play, biggest play of the season from Dan here, is San Francisco -6.5 at home against Carolina Panthers. Now, 49ers coming off a bye, but as we just mentioned, Carolina with that 4-game winning streak, but apparently you're not buying into their opposition.
I think that Carolina is... I think they're a decent team. They might sneak into the playoffs. But San Francisco, at home, off of a bye, Carolina traveling west for a 4 o'clock game. Now, Carolina's not an East Coast team like Philadelphia or one of those teams, but it's still quite a distance for a 4 o'clock game. They're finally seeing a real defense. They're finally seeing some stiff competition. And just by watching the Carolina Panthers, they look really good. Newton looks like he's doing some good things. But I don't think D'Angelo Williams is going to play the way he's been playing. And Cam's been getting away with stuff. He threw one of the worst interceptions of any quarterback's thrown of the year. And no one's even talked about it once because they just blew out Atlanta so bad. But he was in the red zone and pretty much just tossed one up. And he still does stuff like that. He still lacks a little bit of maturity. And he's finally facing a team that's going to make him pay for stuff like that. And I just think it's a really good spot, like I said, off of bye. And if you remember, we made money fading Carolina on the road in Arizona, and I think San Francisco's better than Arizona. I think it's a double-digit win. A lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people are actually waiting for this line to go to 7, and if they can get a full touchdown, they're going to come hard on Carolina.
Yeah, I think the public sees that Carolina has that 4-game winning streak, and everybody's been talking about Cam and how well he's been doing lately for the most part, and that Carolina defense 3rd in the league in DVOA, and with Kinkley getting a lot of Defensive Player of the Year type talk from the media. So definitely a public side with Carolina, even though
actually, yes, I would like to see who actually is getting the.
It would be interesting because San Francisco obviously
they're a public team. They're a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, everybody knows them from the Super Bowl last season and Kaepernick's and all the commercials and everything. So. It will be interesting to see which side the public falls on.
Can't see a Harbaugh losing off a bye for the 2nd week in a row.
But Mike, I'm curious, what about this really cemented it as the first 2-unit play of the year for you?
Because I think there's all those things working together, and I think you have Carolina Panthers are being severely overvalued right now. And the Niners, they're my pick right now to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And Carolina, I've seen them. I watched them in a couple preseason games. I watched them every game this year. And they just had, some teams do that. There's a lot of teams in the NBA like that too, where if you put them up against a mediocre or bad team, they're explosive and they look dynamic. But once they face a team with a scheme that knows what they're doing, they just look completely mortal. And I really think that they're going to struggle to score. I think they're going to score less than 20 points in this game. I'm thinking it's going to be about like a 27-13 win for San Francisco.
Well, I tell you what, I would not be one to bet against Jim Harbaugh having 2 weeks to prepare for a team. So certainly something to watch next week. Should be a good game regardless of what the outcome is.
Right. The only thing that worries me is it might be a hard fought battle that comes down to a field goal or comes down to like a backdoor cover for Carolina or something like that. But I got to go with my gut. I saw this line. I started drooling. I'm going to roll with it.
All right. So there you go. That's the first 2-unit play of the year. And that's the first play of Week 10. It's San Francisco -6.5. So your only other play of the week is total. It's the Dallas New Orleans over 52.5, and that's already moved up to 54.5. But you got it at 52.5 and locked it in. So this is I think you have gone with Dallas previously this year.
I've gone with a lot of Dallas overs.
And it hasn't been too kind to you, but you're going back to the well in Week 10. What do you see here that you like?
But you got the Saints angry returning home against a team that's given up 400-plus passing yards already. Drew Brees is probably going to throw for 700. He might set the NFL record in this game.
Bold prediction.
No, but seriously, I expect 30-35 out of them alone. And this just has all the makings. Like I said, first of all, follow me on Twitter because I do lock these in on Monday. And like I said, a key to winning is beating the close. Right now it's 54.5. That's a big difference in 52.5. But I always tweet when I lock it in to make sure that people who do trust me and do take my word for things also get the same lines that I get. But I just think this game has prime time in a dome shootout written all over it. This is one of those games that could be 17-7 at halftime and end up 37-33. Both quarterbacks are very good. Both teams have a lot of weapons. I understand the Saints have a decent defense. But Cowboys, you saw their strategy the last couple of weeks. Throw. You throw it enough, you're gonna complete some of those passes.
Yeah, Dallas ran the ball less than 10 times last week, and teams that had done that had only won one of their last 36 games. And they did come away with the victory last week, but just a really bizarre strategy last week. I realized Murray was coming back off the injury.
But he was back. It was DeMarco Murray. It wasn't Joseph Randle in there.
And Randle had looked okay the prior week, so I think they would have been comfortable giving him some carries and working him in along with Murray. So it's really strange. So logically, you would think they would recognize that and maybe go with more running action this week, but nothing logical is ever happens down in Dallas. So
I don't know, and I have no statistics to prove this, but dome games in prime time, I seem to always be on the over of those games, and I don't know what the record of them is. It's something I'm sure I could look up, but I know if it was constantly losing for me, I would have gotten off of it by now.
Well, you do say you never play unders, and primetime games are more popular for the bettors than those 4 o'clock or 1 o'clock games. So you're not going to be betting the unders in primetime.
No, I'm not going to. And listen, I'm not saying unders are a bad bet. In fact, it's very close with this year in terms of over and under winning. I just can't do it, and I just can't. It's not even about like the gambling nature where I can't watch a game and root for under. It's just, I mean, how many games this year have been 7-3 in the third quarter and ended up going over? I don't know. I try to avoid that, and I try to look for over. It's the same way that even though the Jaguars might cover a spread, I'll never take them.
Yeah, you just don't want to be rooting for the ugly side, whether that's the team that can't move the ball up in the field most of the game or rooting against points being scored. But yeah, Saints coming off that loss to the Jets, and they'll be putting in the work in this week and facing a really struggling Dallas defense. I'd look for them to put up plenty of points, and Romo's done it before. He's gotten into those shootouts. He did it against Denver, so certainly a manageable total at 52.5 for you.
I'm not locking this in as a play, but if you wanted to tease New Orleans down to -1 and then pick either Seattle or the Giants or one of those teams to add to it, I think those are all pretty solid bets.
Yeah, I agree that the Cowboys really haven't beaten a premier opponent this season.
Especially on the road.
And Saints, they were so tough at home that I think that would be a wise play as well. So those are the 2 plays for Week 10. Again, the 2-unit play, so it'll count for 3 games, more or less, on his record. We have San Francisco -6.5, and Dallas, New Orleans, 52.5, the over on that one. So we're going to move on to our Outlet Pass segment where we take some reader questions and we discuss them a little bit, try to give our best answer, our opinions on some things. Be sure to send us your questions each week, either at PhillyFastBreak on Twitter, or you can catch us via email, admin@PhillyFastBreak.com, or get in touch with one of us on Facebook. So we have a question back with our NBA guy, brings us a lot of good NBA questions. That's at KMax732, Kirill Platnick. He asked, how close is Paul George to being the 3rd best player in the NBA? Dan, does that strike you as just like a bizarre question? Because Paul George, he plays in Indiana. It's not like a big media hub.
He's not like a sexy kind of player.
It's not like the ratio of Carmelo Anthony talk to Paul George talk has to be 50-1.
So he's saying the question is how close is he to being the 3rd best player?
So Michael Carter Williams, obviously the first and the second, I guess is what he's saying.
Michael Carter is number 1 and Michael Williams is number 2.
Yeah, the hyphen counts for 2 players. But no, clearly LeBron and Durant, they're above everybody else. They're in a tier by themselves.
Correct.
And I gotta say he's very close to being 3rd. I would put Chris Paul pretty comfortably in 3rd. But then Paul George right now, he's averaging 27 a game, 2nd in the league behind Durant, points that is. He's averaging a little over 8 rebounds. The big thing that stands out with me is he's averaging over 4 assists so far. And this was a big point of emphasis for the Pacers in the offseason. They were going to kind of hand the reins of the offense a little more over to George, kind of like the Heat did with LeBron, where he's a point forward pretty much. So George Hill, he's battling a hip injury right now, but he played in a couple games this season so far. He's nominally the point guard, but he's doing a lot of just standing off to the side, kind of being like a spot-up shooter in the half-court offense, whereas George is running the show. So he's really taken that step to being in control of the offense and assuming responsibility of the entire team. And he's doing it very efficiently right now. He's averaging over 52% from the field, 45% from 3, 80% from the line. So if he can, he's probably not going to be over 50%, but if he can approximate like the mid to high 40s from the field while he's putting up these great counting stats throughout the season, yeah, he's certainly very close to being the 3rd, like just below where LeBron and Durant are.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, you're the NBA guy, and I don't know all that much about it. I'm trying to get more into it this year. But I think right now the 3rd guy is Chris Paul. But when you take his age into consideration, the fact that he's really hitting his prime right now, we don't even know if this is it from Paul George. He could even get better still.
We don't know if this is the ceiling. And he also, you're going to throw some other guys out in the conversation for maybe that fourth best player. You look at a Steph Curry, a James Harden. But what separates George is his work on the defensive end. Every night he goes out and he guards that opposing team's best player. We saw it in the playoffs
Started with LeBron last year.
Like, LeBron still got his, but that was playoff LeBron. That's LeBron at a whole nother level of play. Like, you see him now.
They don't care.
Against the Sixers, against the Wizards, you catch LeBron once in a while, like he's kind of just going through the motions. Like he's not really attacking, he's settling for long jumpers. He's not going for the block every play defensively. In the playoffs, LeBron, he's going full tilt for all 40-plus minutes that he's in the game. So for George to have kind of contained him last season in the playoffs and gotten his team, he carried his team, him and Hibbert, to a Game 7 where they almost knocked off the Heat. I mean, that was really impressive, and he's only getting better this season. So
kudos to him. A lot of times you have a guy who has like a series like that where they somewhat break out, and the question is, did they turn the corner or did they just get hot for a while? And it was not just a hot streak for him. He's turned the corner. He's a stud.
Yeah, and that goes to his character, putting in the work in the offseason. Guys could just kind of ride the wave of that media exposure in the playoffs. Like everybody's telling them how great they are for how well they played. But
I don't see
NBA, everybody else is working hard in the offseason. They're adding a different facet to their game. You have to be doing that too. Otherwise, they're going to leave you behind.
I don't see any reason why Indiana can't represent the East in the finals this year.
No, I agree. The Heat are a little bit worse than last season, in my opinion.
The Pacers are a little bit better.
Pacers are a little bit better. So I think that could definitely turn the tide. We talked a little bit about that a few weeks ago on one of these podcasts, but based on the 4-0 start for the Pacers, they've shown me what I needed to see from them as far as those guys continuing to take that next step in Paul George and Hibbert, who's doing
where do you think Tony
very
Roten
well in
ranks?
defensive ends.
Is Tony Roten in the top 5 players in the NBA right now?
He's top 5 most entertaining.
He's on the JaVale McGee scale.
Yeah, JaVale McGee, he just does knucklehead things. Tony Roten, he just has this energy, and he's just like chasing the ball wherever it goes. He just wants to dunk on people and like go for crazy blocks on the defensive end and gamble for steals.
I love this guy. And if it sounds a little bit random, I already bring that up. We actually have the Sixers-Wizards game on in the background right now. Yeah. While the Sixers coming back to normalcy seems to continue as they're down by 14, Tony Roten's still doing Tony Roten things.
They're playing possum. This is what they do. They struggle in the first half. They let the other team tire themselves out getting a lead.
And then they shoot 74%.
And then they shoot an unsustainably high percentage in the second half.
Oh, speaking of unsustainably high, Washington's 6 for 8 for 3 already.
Yeah, that's not going to continue, I would say. But
right,
so that was the question from Kirill, KMax732. We appreciate the question, very intriguing one. I was looking down the list of guys, and I wouldn't necessarily think Paul George is the 4th best player in the NBA right now. But looking at it,
solid case.
I can make a pretty solid case for it, and I gotta agree with that. So, Chris Paul's playing very, very well right now, so I think he's pretty locked in for number 3. But George pretty locked in at number 4, in my opinion. So good question. Everybody else, be sure to send us questions in the future.
Yeah, we give you guys winners. Just throw us a bone and give us some questions.
Yeah, we want to talk some NFL. We want to talk some NBA. We like hearing different points of view. So send us some questions. Let us know about, even if you don't have a question, maybe something you'd like us to talk about, or a different feature you'd like to see added to the show each week, and we'll be sure to accommodate that. We're always looking for great feedback from you guys. So, Dan, thanks for coming on.
Sorry I didn't have more plays for you guys this week, but we're going to go big on this San Fran game. Let's go get them.
Yeah, they don't have to be numerous. They just have to be winners.
Gotta be winners.
That's my motto. So, thanks, everybody, and we'll check you next week.